I position myself in the center. There's a truck in front of me, truck behind me. First truck radios up, hey, there's a dead dog in the middle of the road. And like, that's weird. Looking back on it, probably a marker of some sort. And it wasn't maybe 5 seconds after that, our first truck gets hit with an IED. And you hear boom, and you can see the truck fly up and bounce off the road. And then all of a sudden, like, second later, our truck gets hit with an IED. And all ears are ringing. You know, you got this, they got in movies where you see somebody get smacked in the head and you hear this beep noise and everything's kind of dizzy and crazy. That's literally how it is. It's a pretty good representation of what happens. And then our third truck gets hit. Well, our third truck gets hit real bad. I mean, it's to the point where it's not moving. It's in the middle of the road. And machine gun fire opens up.
Welcome back, everybody, to this episode of the Pay It Forward podcast. I'm your host, one of your hosts, Austin Seefeldt, along with my other co-host, Keegan Walls, and today we have the pleasure of sitting down with Sergeant Major Micheal Seefeld. Michael is a 25-year veteran of the United States Army, still currently serving part-time in the National Guard. He was deployed 5 times in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, Special Operations Joint Task Force Afghanistan, and Operation Alamo Shield. He's received 4 Bronze Stars, 1 with Valor. He's the owner of Hydro Heroes LLC, a pressure washing business in Portage, Wisconsin. Youth football and wrestling coach, a business consultant, amongst a bunch of other things. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Today,
Great
Mike.
to be here, guys. I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. So today's 9/11 when we're recording this. I think it's just important to recognize that we would not be here doing this show or what we're doing, to have the freedom to do this and have these conversations without men and women like yourself serving our country. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Appreciate you saying that.
So for us who don't have a military background, I read your bio and a lot of it sounds Chinese to me, right?
Yeah.
So just explain to our audience a little bit about what you did and do in the Army.
Okay, so I enlisted back in 99, January 25th. Joined the National Guard, Wisconsin Army National Guard. I was 17. It was my junior year of high school. And I did this program at the time was called Split Option Program, which you'd complete your high school, junior year of high school, and instead of hanging around and getting a party on, senior weekends, you'd go to basic training. So I packed up, went down to Fort Benning, Georgia, did about 11 weeks down there. So it was supposed to be go down your junior year, summer, come back for your senior year, and then at the end of your senior year, complete your job training, your job-specific training. Well, I ended up going down there, and they put me into a OSET unit, which is basic and your job training back-to-back. Well, problem is that timeline didn't work with high school. So I had missed a few days of high school because the Army didn't send me home. They didn't know I had to go to high school. They thought, we're just going to send you along to infantry training. So, I was actually at basic training, and the drill sergeant, they don't know your name. If they know your name, it's probably not a good thing. So they all called me Seefeldt. So they're like, God damn it, Seefeldt. You didn't tell me you were in high school. And I'm like, sorry, drill sergeant. Yeah, that's right. You are sorry. Go pack your shit. You're leaving. So like that day, I went and packed my stuff up, rolled out.
No way.
Went back home. Yeah, I went back home. Went back for football. My senior year of football, we had like our physical fitness competition a few days before that and ended up being in great shape or whatever. So I went back, did my senior year of high school, and then I left. I went out again my senior year for my job-specific training, which is field artillery. And my enlistment was a 13 Fox. So actually when, initially what I thought the 13 Fox was like, they call it fires for an observer. So I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe I'm like a firefighter or something. Well, could be further from the truth. So the field artillery is like 3 components of the field artillery. There's like 3 job classes, essentially. There's a few more, There's guys that do radars and stuff like that. But there's 3 main components, and one I call the muscle, which is called 13 Bravo, and those guys are cannoneers. So those are the guys that load the big cannons. So imagine those tanks that you see in TV with a big long barrel on them. Those are howitzers, and then there's ones that are towed behind Humvees. You see them at like high school football games. They shoot out blank canisters, right? So the guys that load those are 13 Bravos. So they're kind of the muscle. And then you got the fire direction control, which are my buddy Kyle over here. He was an FDC guy. Food and Drug Center. We make stuff up. It's fire direction control, but basically they're like the smart nerds of the organization, right? So
Kyle,
they compute everything. Yeah, he's just missing the smart part. But no, Kyle's a man. So it goes to the FDC, and they compute it, all these numbers and distances, rotation of the earth, barometric pressure, all that stuff, and they put it into a language that the 13 Bravos can understand. They put them into the devices on the howitzer and they shoot it. Well, the third element is the eyes. So to have targets, you got to have somebody out front that finds the targets. That's a 13 Fox. In short, they call them fisters, but they're forward observers. Essentially, they're the guys out with the infantry or special operations units that are there to support. If stuff goes south or they need support by artillery or air assets, those are the guys that kind of handle that. So that's what I enlisted in doing, and kind of made a career of it, off and on with going active duty, deployments, etc.
So you were essentially giving direction to where they would shoot the artillery to?
Correct. Yep. So I would observe it then too. So, you're kind of it's a double-edged sword, right? So if you're not good at your job, you could potentially put rounds on you.
Yeah.
And that's a bad day for everybody.
Yeah.
So I would call back to the FDC, with location, or if there's a known point, I can shift from that location of that known point by a distance, observe the rounds, and then make corrections as needed to neutralize and destroy enemy.
And how far are they shooting?
So when it's cannon, so there's some misnomers on some of it. So we have stuff that is rocket assisted. So imagine a 96-pound piece of steel coming at your house, with a rocket on the back of it going 45,000 kilometers, essentially. So think, 30 miles roughly. And then we actually have HIMARS trucks, which are the high mobility rocket systems. Look like a big Caterpillar truck with big wheels with a big box on the back. Well, those shoot rockets. And depending on what type of rocket, we're going out 300K with that. And you're talking rockets that are shot literally from the ground into outer space and then hit targets
really
at set distance with a plus or minus miss ratio of a matter of meters. So imagine, shooting from here and putting around in a building in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
There's a potential to do that. So it's a great business. I always say it's a serious business, artillery, because when we go to the field to train, much like the infantry, we don't put a blank firing adapter on our gun and run around the woods and shoot blanks. We don't have those. So when we train, it's for real. It's for keeps. So it's a dangerous field, but it's a very rewarding field. The camaraderie. I obviously love the field artillery more than any other branch, right? But there's a closeness in the field artillery, and I really call it the ultimate team sport. I did athletics in high school and stuff, and, everybody's got a purpose on a football team. It takes everybody to win. You can have the greatest receiver in the world, but if you got a quarterback that gets it out to him, it don't matter. If you got a left tackle that can keep the defense end off him, doesn't matter. Same thing in the field artillery. It takes a lot of people, and I've read studies of upwards of 90 people are required before that round is even shot out of the tube. Then you talk about making it, to somebody transporting it. I mean, there is a lot of stuff to think about. It's literally a symphony. Imagine an orchestra together. You are guiding an orchestra in the field artillery. And when you get it done, it's great. And, and when things aren't working, it's frustrating. But it's rewarding. And, there's this there's a saying to be said, when you're going through tough shit and tough times and hard stuff and you're doing it together, that forms bonds that, unless you've done it, you just don't know, so.
Walk us through like the early stages, military career. What was that first deployment like?
Yeah, so I wasn't even going to enlist right away. I had thought about it as a young kid. I seen, guys at the annual Christmas parade up in Abbotsford, Wisconsin. Seen the local armory guys. I remember seeing a guy with a Ranger tab, a Ranger patch, and I fell in love with the Rangers as a little kid. And then, I got into high school, and shout out to one of the toughest human beings, motivated human beings I ever met, a guy by the name of Barry Braithwaite, a couple years older than me, but smaller dude playing middle linebacker, just a fucking savage. This guy was. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. Barry, if you're listening, love you, brother. But this dude was just a savage. He would go in, get knocked out half the games, come off, not know where the hell he's at, go right back in there. But he joined the Guard as a 13 Fox, so I do credit a lot of him to that. Joining, September 11th, big deal, changed a lot of the history. Didn't really know what was going to happen for us. I can tell you that our training from that next month, so flashback to October 2001, there was a different sense of urgency. There was a as a young guy, I was only, 20 years old. There was a different look in the leadership's eyes. There was a sense of you can't be complacent. You got to be here on time. It just, everything was elevated per se, even the training. And we didn't know what was going to happen, and we got what's called our first NOS, which is a notification of sourcing. It's something the Army uses to say, oh, hey, this unit's getting ready to go out and do a mobilization. And we got ours in around 2004. And we didn't really know what we were going to be doing. We thought, okay, well, maybe what do we do? We went to Iraq, we went to Afghanistan, you really don't know. The Army decides what your mission set's going to be. So we ended up, training up for what we thought our mission set was going to be convoy security. We ended up going over to Kuwait and sitting at this port called the SPOD, the seaport of embarkation and debarkation. So basically it's a large port in Kuwait. If you know anything about American ships, they're very large. So it requires a special port that's deep enough. So we guarded this port that, your Bradley fighting vehicles, your Apache helicopters, your Humvees, your trucks, all that stuff came into. So we guarded that port. Needless to say, not the mission we had trained for. Different security operations. For an artilleryman, not a ton of fun. But a very difficult, nonetheless, a different type of difficult to manage. You got a lot of complacency. The threat level wasn't that high, right? So we go on that mob. Before that mob, during our train up, we run into Hurricane Katrina down at the beautiful Camp Shelby, Mississippi. I can tell you if you've ever been there, I call Fort Sill the armpit of the United States, Lawton, Oklahoma, and use your imagination. What I call that. And then there's one place only worse than that, and that's in Louisiana called Fort Polk. And you guys listening in know what I'm talking about. You know what body part I'm talking about on that one. But so we went through some pretty trying things, but when you're young, you don't think about that. And you looking back on it, was like, that's what built the team. We sat through that Hurricane Katrina, locked in barracks, pissing through vents in the wall because we couldn't go outside.
Really?
We had to make a Mr. Shitty out of a milk crate and literally had put a garbage bag in. That was our shitter for 2 days. So needless to say, it was like you didn't want to be the first guy to shit in that thing, right? So, but going through all those things is what brought us closer together. And, and once we got there, it was just a different level of operations. So, we did that mob. Successful, nobody injured, I think we had one injury, but it was a guy that was on leave. He got into a car accident, but let's say that no injuries, no deaths. That's always the thing as a leader, and as you get older, it's like, bring everybody home. You bring them home what they came with, all their fingers, all their toes, all their arms, that type of stuff. Well, I was asked, I made a tough decision. And, our battalion and a lot of other battalions from the state of Wisconsin had gone home on that mobilization right around October 1st of 2006. And, I'd been gone from home roughly 16, 17 months, something like that. But I made a decision to stay. I felt like there was more I had to do. So I went up on a special mission with a bunch of guys out of Kansas and Minnesota. And I went up to this place called CSC Scania. Think of like a fuel hub on its way to Baghdad. So a logistics stop. Think of like Bucky's truck stop out in the middle of nowhere, except the main MSR main supply route, Tampa was the name, that would run north, basically the entire length of the country, but into Baghdad. This thing was built in the middle of it, so you couldn't get through without stopping there. Strategic point, very strategic point. Good spot for the bad guys to hit. Some people called it Mortaritaville because we were getting mortared nonstop, to include, 300 plus millimeter rockets, Russian rockets, occasionally that would hit. So made a decision to go up. There was 9 of us total from the great state of Wisconsin that went up there. One of us got broken off to a different spot, but there was 8 of us in this specialty area that did combat control patrols. We did patrols, we did convoy security, we did some special missions. We called them secret squirrel missions, where we had high value targets. We'd go up, pull security, while the cool guys we call the SF or the Rangers would come in and scoop these bad guys up. And occasionally we'd get lucky and grab a couple ourselves. Pretty good. Got my first real combat situation was in November of 2006. Literally out on a road, dismounted from the vehicle, taking machine gun fire. So like having bullets whizzing around you, and it was like, it's not like you train. It was a different experience, and it changes you in good ways and bad ways ultimately. And some of the changes you don't see for several years down the road. So I know a lot of the veterans listening can relate to that one. I'm talking stuff mentally and physically, ailments that maybe seem pretty cool on the surface, where the guy looks like he's a duck on the pond, but underneath, those legs are just really kicking, so you don't realize a lot of that stuff. Later in that deployment, February 22nd, 2007, is, really my birth into real combat. It was the 21st that evening, and we were out on a patrol late, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, local time. So imagine the United States is about 9 hours behind at this time, right? So imagine all this going on, and, we're on this mission at about 10 o'clock at night. It's the afternoon back here. So our families are back here living their lives, going about business. Well, we go back to the base. Before we go back, we stop at a checkpoint, this Iraqi police checkpoint, and the guy in broken English says, Alibaba's out tonight. Alibaba, he knows Alibaba. Alibaba was a thief, right? So guys are kind of like, there's a spidey sense about the whole situation. They never blow it off. We're done for the day, so we go back. Now we're on QRF for the post, which is quick reaction force. So shit goes bad, we're the guys. We're the muscle. We're the shit that's got to handle things. And literally a barrage of fires starts hitting the base, mortars. And it's different than occasionally, right? Occasionally we'd have some mortars scream over, some rockets here and there, It was frequent. But they weren't always very close. They weren't always good at aiming their rockets, right? So, but this barrage was deadly accurate, literally deadly accurate. Hits one of our hooches. We were living in wood hooches, right, with some concrete barricades around them, if you had concrete barricades. And this is early morning of the 27th. And we're talking about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. So we're back a few hours. I had literally just climbed in my rack. I had been doing maintenance on the vehicles earlier and some PMCS and stuff, preventative maintenance checks and services on our equipment, weapons, and so on. And I just literally been crawling in the bed, and all of a sudden barrage hits, and you can hear the rounds hitting. And it hits, next door and literally takes out our platoon sergeant and our lieutenant, just like that. Hits one of the shitters, takes a guy out who's literally taking a shit, one guy who's shaving. They eat some shrapnel. So now you got a mass cal event, and helicopters got to get there. Well, helicopters ain't landing while there's still shit flying at the base, right? So somebody's got to do something about it. So our call sign was Assassin 2-2, and we go out, and our sister element was Assassin 2-1. They were, Assassin 2-3. They were actually already out on the route. We ended up bypassing them to be essentially the first scene responders. So we loaded up with 3 gun trucks, and we went out north of the base on MSR Tampa, and we hit our first east and west road, which we called sanitation. We called it sanitation because of just the sheer amount of garbage and junk. Iraq doesn't have site recycling centers, right? Or dumpsters or burn pits or any type of management of trash. So there's just shit everywhere. Well, it's easy to conceal roadside bombs, so it's not a road you typically travel real fast on. You travel fast on it when your buddies are getting hurt, right? And you need to get helicopters there. So we go flying down this road, and imagine, if you're playing it in your mind, we're hanging a left, so now we're going west down this road called sanitation, and we go about 3 kilometers, a mile and a half or so, and then we hang another left, and we go back south. Now, this road is adjacent to the base. So imagine the base road going north and south. This road is to the left of it, also running north and south. We're traveling south down this road. And now it's at a distance, obviously, because they're able to hit our base with accurate mortar fire. Mortars typically are no greater than 6,000 meters. So if it gives you an idea, right, 1 mile is 1,600 meters, 3 miles is 4,800 meters. This road is only 3.5 to 4 miles away from the base as the crow flies, right? So we're traveling south, and we bypass our sister unit, which not sure if they just wanted us, not really sure the reason. The gentleman who called us in front was a guy by the name of Sergeant First Class David Mugg, and God rest his soul, he's no longer with us. But that was one question I never got to ask him. Deep down inside, I think I know the answer, but in any route, our teammates were there for our support. We're heading south, and I'm in the second truck, middle truck, so I'm the convoy commander, essentially. I position myself in the center. There's a truck in front of me, truck behind me. First truck radios up, hey, there's a dead dog in the middle of the road. And, that's weird. Looking back on it, probably a marker of some sort. And it wasn't. Maybe 5 seconds after that, our first truck gets hit with an IED. And you hear boom, and you can see the truck fly up and bounce off the road. And then all of a sudden, second later, our truck gets hit with an IED. And all ears are ringing. You got this, they got in movies where you see somebody get smacked in the head, and you hear this beep noise, and everything's kind of dizzy and crazy. That's literally how it is. It's a pretty good representation of what happens. And then our third truck gets hit. Well, our third truck gets hit real bad. I mean, it's to the point where it's not moving. It's in the middle of the road. And machine gun fire opens up. And guys in the first truck are messed up. Guys in my truck are messed up. Everybody in the third truck, nobody's responding. There's 5 individuals in that truck. So what do? You get out. You go back, so I'm running back north up the road. Machine gun fire opens up on me, and ends up, my medic was the only one with me. It was a female by the name of Amanda Kistler. She was awarded a Valor award as well. Actually lives in La Crosse, Wisconsin here now. I think she works at the hospital, but she's there as my support, literally with a 9mm, and that's kind of where we're at. We're behind this Humvee taking fire, trying to get people out of this Humvee. And, we lost some guys. David Berry, real good friend of mine, who was in charge of the section. He was riding shotgun. He ate the EFP, which EFP is a explosively formed projectile. So imagine a large copper plate with an explosives behind it and being detonated, which these were detonated by somebody watching. Imagine a big wire running back to a house. They detonate it, and the explosion comes from behind this plate, and the explosion forms this projectile, forms it into a projectile, this flat plate. Well, copper, very hot, cuts through significant amounts of steel, 6 to 8 inches of steel. It'll cut right through it. So a little Humvee doesn't stand a chance. I like to think it's because of the great job the whole group in that in that area of responsibility was doing at controlling weapons getting into Baghdad, because that was during the surge. So I like to think we were doing such a great job that these things they designed for tanks and Bradleys, they had to use on us because they couldn't get past us. What reality is that's in God's hands. I don't know that we'll ever know that. But, so these things blew up. We get back there. David Barry's gone. My driver, he's out cold. Big John Jones, big tall dude, large man, barely fit in the driver's seat. Great guy from Arkansas, old Southern boy. And then we had Pete Rickard, good friend of mine. He was up in the gunner's hatch. So imagine, he's sitting up in a little net, basically controlling the machine gun. And my gunnery sergeant, Jared Hayes, who was kind of my mentor on that deployment. He was an E7, one rank above me. And Hayes had taken a large part of the projectile to his face. Basically took off from his nose down to his chin all the way across. And I remember him getting out of the vehicle once he came to, and he was definitely didn't know what was going on, but he was looking for his teeth and shooting his gun. I mean, that's a tough son of a bitch right there, that he was more concerned missing half his face while protecting us. So he ended up having to take a knee because I was kind of worried for him being kind of lackadaisical and stuff. But great dude. Pete Rickard ended up having to do some not so fun things to get him out of the vehicle. The vehicle was on fire, and we had grenades in, so we're worried grenades and fire don't play well together. So it was a matter of time getting these guys out. So we got Pete out, ended up losing a leg, and then we ended up getting Big John Jones out, who had majority of his top of his skull blown off, and really a miracle that he lived. I mean, we didn't think he was alive. We had an initial report. We had actually radioed up that he had died, and ironically enough, to take care of these, putting a tourniquet on Pete's leg, and he honks the horn in his Humvee that's just blowing the shit. I mean, no fucking tires. Doors are basically blowing off this thing. It doesn't even look like a Humvee. Dead guys in it, blood all over. This guy honks the horn. So then, now we got to get him on a helicopter. And one of the things that just always has stuck with me, like the smell, certain things will set the smell off. It's just a unique smell that's always stuck with me. And the other big thing that has stuck with me, and it's kind of stupid, but when the helicopters landed, so imagine facing back north and we're in the middle of this road, the helicopters landed to our east, which would have been towards the base. Well, the bad guys were on the west, right? So it makes sense they landed east. When they landed in like this marshy shit that was just soft. In a big helicopter, it sinks in. So when you're accustomed to carrying a gurney, you're hunched over a little bit because there's a prop, get your head taken off. Well, I remember getting up there, and the guy, it was a female, was like, you need to get down. And I was like, I had some choice words back, like, don't you tell me, you're just on this helicopter. Don't tell me to get down. And I'm like, holy shit, I seen the props really low because the belly of the helicopter had sunk in. So I was like, oh, thank you. My whole tone changed from like, listen, I'm the baddest fucker out here yeah, you're right. I'm an idiot. I need to get down. So, I mean, John Jones, big dude. Now we're pulling this guy on our knees on a 4-man gurney, trying to get him in there. So just create craziness. And, and then, it's all done. Your guys are shipped off. They're hauling guys away from the base. You don't know exactly what's happened. Well, now you got to go back. You got to go back to the base. Helicopters can fly you back there. You got to get in what's running or get in with somebody, and you got to go back. And that was the longest drive of my life, was going back, because everything looked like a bomb. But when it's your first time like that for real, But everything in my life changed after that. And I looked at things differently. And, you know, with David being gone, you know, I was a filler to this unit. I didn't train up with these guys. I didn't go through the hurricane training and all that shit that I bonded with these other guys with. I'm the new guy. So you want to talk about having to earn trust? You know, that was a testament. And that was a point in my life where you had to do it right. Or who knows how things would have ended up. But, you know, I worked my ass off for those guys, and, you know, I made some good decisions. And when I made bad decisions, I owned it. Like, you know, I went to them and said, hey, I fucked up. Like, you know, here you go. And, you know, they took me in. And we finished the mob, you know, and I got some decorations and stuff. But, you know, that isn't what's important to me. People are important to me. You know, the awards and the decorations, unfortunately, when you get stuff like that, somebody pays, right? You know, David's wife, Kathleen, this is 2:00 in the morning. You know, it's kind of tearing up talking about it, but it's 2:00 in the morning. Her husband's dead. You know, you backwards 9 hours off of that. That's 5 p.m. She's probably sitting down having dinner. She's probably talking to her family about talking to David before he went out on mission earlier that day. And that's every family that happened to. So you definitely look at life different, you know. I came back off that mold. Things had changed. I'd gotten promoted. I went to this unit in Stevens Point, Wisconsin. So I went from the unit that had like all the farm kids and shit to the unit that was in a college town. So a completely different dynamic, which also exercised different types of leadership. So I went into this unit, and it wasn't even, so 2007, I'd gone to school right when I'd gotten back, damn near got meningitis, was not having good luck, had been gone from home over 27 months, lost my girlfriend, wasn't sure what I wanted to do for work, and was denying that I maybe had some slight forms of post-traumatic stress and some depression. So I went, figured things out, started an LLC welding, bam, get called up again. So we're in 2009, not even 18 months. Bam, hey, you guys are going. So we get a sourcing. Well, when you go in 2009, right, you get back in October of 2007, we're getting a sourcing already. Just because you leave at 2009, your training starts before that. So your battle rhythm picks up, the requirements pick up, being away from home. So you can imagine the stress, you know, I just put on my entire family, right? But, 2009, I'm 26, 27 years old. I know everything, right? I'm a young man. I'm combat hard. I'm ready to go, right? So we get the mob again, not sure what we're going to do. We find out what we're going to do. We're going to run the TIF. I'm like, what the hell is a TIF? Theater Internment Facility. Other word for a prison. It's a civilian prison. So you guys maybe have heard growing up the deck of cards, right? So there's a deck of cards of terrorists back in the day. It was a joke. Some guy made these deck of cards with kings and, all the deck of cards, and then there was a terrorist on each one. Well, the majority of those guys were in this theater internment facility that we housed, a place where they housed Saddam Hussein, a place where they housed Chemical Ali, the guy responsible for testing chemicals on thousands of Kurdish people and killing them. Complete monsters and terrible human beings, right? So we got to go there and we find out we got to guard it. And we're like, well, we're field artillery. we don't do that. Well, you guys better figure it out. So we went there, completely different type of mission. The big thing was treat them with dignity and respect, because that's the American way, right? You're talking about, we're guarding people that cut heads off soldiers. We're talking about people that planted IEDs and killed American soldiers. We got to guard them. We got to feed them. We got to make sure they get to their medical appointments, that type of stuff.
Where is this?
This is at a place called BIAP, Baghdad International Airport. The Army has a way of just making up acronyms for everything. So I know it's hard to keep up. Some of them I don't know.
Yeah.
So when I don't know what an acronym is, I just MSU it. make shit up, right? So anyway, so we're at BIOP, and it's called Camp Cropper is what it's called. So without getting too much into specifics, but there was different compounds that held different types of terrorists. He's over there, different religions and stuff you couldn't put together. There's different violence levels, that type of stuff. Think of different degreeing levels of supermax prisons in the United States. Right? These are just all in one spot, and we do them in different compounds. And there's a compound where they're really, really the brainchilds behind these high-value guys are at. Oh, and our sister unit at the time out of Marshfield, Wisconsin, actually had that. A good friend of mine was the commander, Nate Bennington. He actually is up out of Marshfield, Wisconsin. He's a COO for Allied Cooperative. Their CEO. He's one of the big wigs down there. So he's actually the commander of that element that had that mission. So we do that mission. Again, not feeling like I gave enough. Gave a ton. We did a good mission. We gathered a lot of intel, and we brought everybody home, but it felt like more. So we started training guys up for Afghanistan. It was a small group again, like the first group that wanted to go and do it. So end up getting that mission. I come home. I get a job at Oshkosh Corporation as a production supervisor. So I go there, and they're like, "Well, you don't have college." Well, and I'm like, "Yeah, I don't." And I guess, we talked earlier about your podcast about the A students and B students working for the C students.
Yeah.
Well, I was a D student. So I had to gift the gab, and he gave me a job, and he said, "Well, you're a D student, but your ass is going to college." And I'm like, "Well, if you guys pay for it, I'll go to college." So that's how I ended up going to college, getting a degree. I ended up getting applied business management while I was there. So I worked for them. Did that for a little bit. And I'm like, man, I just kind of missed Army lifestyle. And this job opens up at Fort McCoy, Wisconsin, called the Field Artillery SME Cell. SME stands for Subject Matter Expert. And I apply for this job, not thinking really I got a chance of it. I get it, 2014. And I end up going on a 10 years run in there. I came out just this April, but I'd worked with Kyle in there. He was my contractor. But I had done that, and I had done some deployments as well. Which brings me up to 2019. And I get a call from this guy who I had done some fires for back in 2007, a real gory one I told you about. And he says, "Hey, Mike, we need a fires guy. We need somebody badass." And it's with this unit called SODP, Special Operations Detachment Pacific. And they're out of Fort Lewis, Washington, near Tacoma, south of Tacoma. And I'm like, "Sounds awesome. What are you guys going to do?" "Well, I can't really tell you." "Oh, okay. Well, we don't really know." Okay. I'm still interested. So they set up these mock interviews over the phone. And the first interview, and I'll be honest with you, I'm out in D.C. doing some work, and I'll go after hours, and we're out drink a little bit of bourbon, right? So it's travel day. It's a Thursday, and it's a Thursday night, and typically travel on Friday. So I'm like, it's got to be to the airport, boys, So we get an Uber, we go down, we get after it, we pound some bourbons, probably more than we need to, and all of a sudden my phone rings, and I'm like, Washington number, not Washington D.C., Washington State, and I'm like, I can answer this. Click it. Bitch, click them. I don't answer it. Have a few bourbons. It rings again. Well, here it's the commander, the sergeant major. This is my interview over the phone. And anyways.
Cool. In addition to the wind.
Let's just say that these guys were like-minded individuals. So, especially the enlisted guy. No, probably one of the best senior enlistment I ever served with, a guy by the name of Eric Clarkson. Big shout out to him. He was my command sergeant major. So I had always been the command sergeant major. So that I was just a staff guy, basically. But my expertise was fires. But big shout out to Eric Clarkson, one of the best leaders I ever served for. Just an incredible human being. And my commander was Paul Sellers, who's no general officer. out in Washington State. So, I mean, it gives you an idea, you know, typically when you get these types of units, like you're with high-performing individuals at every level. And I remember getting there, and I remember him saying, you know, him and Brad and Hedrick, and a lot of the guys, a lot of the senior NCO, Tony Torres, Jeff Inman, you know, just a lot of these senior guys, these operators, Green Berets, they were, and Rangers, Angel Alvarado, these guys were just like, do your job and do it the best. We don't care what you don't have tabs or where your schools are. Just do what you do and do it the best. And that's, I didn't know any other way, right? That's the way I've always done things. So ended up linking up with these guys. We get over to Afghanistan, and they're like, hey, you're going to be advising these senior level Afghan special forces officers on field artillery. Well, I do that for like a month, and I'm like, oh my God. No offense, but the officers they assigned me were just worthless, lazy, didn't show up half the time, wanted me to give them shit or fix their fans, and I'm like, okay. So I would do that to, you know, play the game, right? So, yeah. And finally they were looking, and I don't know if it was I think part of it was by accident, but they were standing up this new cell called the CSAR. And the CSAR has a lot of different meanings for a lot of different people, but for this particular instance was called the Combined Situational Awareness Room, CSAR. So the idea was the first brainchild of how is Afghan going to endure when we leave. So this was probably when they were talking about the pull-out. The idea was to have regional targeting around Afghanistan that we still could influence with our assets without having a bunch of guys on the ground. So I go in there, and the first guy who served in there was a great officer. His name was he was a major, but now he's Lieutenant Colonel Tony Morrow, and he's like, yeah, Mike, you're gonna come over here for a week. So I go over there, and then they give me this other stud who was with us, Jamie Rolfing, who's a captain, he's a ranger. The two of us are running this thing, and literally we're in a fucking broom closet in Bagram Air Force Base, in a broom closet with like 5 Afghans we don't know that aren't, one's like a special forces guy, which, no offense, nobody's like our special forces. Their special forces is like a good infantry battalion, a really good infantry battalion. They're good, but they're not like our guys, right? So you got him, and then we got like some 3-letter agencies types from their organization. So think of like their CIA or their national intel level agencies attached to us. And our job is to get these guys to get us intel, to get targeting packages so we can strike bad people with some of our assets. And we had found some ways in the SOFA agreement and what have you to be allowed to use our assets with permission of their government to hit targets. And, you know, I think part of it at the beginning was like just kind of a hand wave. And I don't want to say, you know, from the senior leadership, the guy who I worked for was a guy by the name of General Chris Donahue, and I will challenge you guys to look him up. You want to talk about America's badass warrior? It's that guy. Every big problem that went on, the evacuation in Afghanistan when they needed support over there, General Donahue. Last guy off the ground in Afghanistan, you seen that picture, that guy getting off the ground with the night vision on the ramp? General Donahue. Problems in Poland, little thing called Ukraine going on. Guess who they send over? General Donahue. And since that I don't know if he even might have pinned his 3rd star on by now. I don't know, but one of the most strategic and greatest minds I ever worked with. So he was challenging me daily, and I got to see this guy. You see a general officer who was in Delta Force. This guy he's a presence. And you want to talk about pressure? People don't know pressure. People have no fucking clue what pressure is until you step into that environment, because he better deliver. He was fucking numbers. Let's go. Let's bring it to him. And great. It's what we all dream of having. It's what every great NCO wants, is a guy like that. So we start to expand this thing, and we start hitting some bad dudes. And they're like, holy shit, this ain't working too bad. So they give us some more people, some more Afghans. They give us some more American assets. And we start building this joint, coherent thing, and all of a sudden we got pilots in there. American pilots and Afghan pilots. And we got this mentorship thing going on with targeting and flying and, everything. Allocating air assets, all of it. We're teaching these guys this. And we get really good at it. And before I leave, and end up leaving in late February of 2020, right before COVID. But, we had, upwards of 100 people working in this thing, 24-shift operation, 365. And, not getting into weeds, we were very successful. There was months we were so successful with numbers they hadn't seen before. And you pick the number you want to use. I'll just leave it at that. But great mission. And literally I'm walking out of there and I'm getting my award. And, I'm with the elite of the whole country, the whole United States military, everything going on there. And they read my award, and at the end, the Army does this generic thing, on behalf of the United States Army, whatever unit you're from, blah, 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 and the Wisconsin Army National Guard. And this general stops in the middle. He goes, "You're in the National Guard?" And I go, "Yes, sir." He just shook his head and laughed, because the guys kicking ass and taking names are guardsmen, and it didn't matter. We have these rivalries and shit, but when it comes to that type of stuff, you put all that BS to the side, because what matters is what's in front of you. And then, I came back, and I'll wrap this up quick here. I know I get long on it. I'm very proud of this, what we accomplished, but that was the highlight of my career. That was, Mike, what did you give back? I gave on that one, man. I will tell you, I did not sleep much, but I loved it. I was a fucking addict for it, and I loved it. And I love America. And it was like everything I could do, and I couldn't sleep. And my buddy Kyle here will tell you I'm built weird like that. Like, I don't need much sleep. I'm a high-performing person in everything I do, but I know I'm not the smartest person either, but that's where I try to find, those smart people around me and build that community per se, build that leading with power network that you guys are. So, today when I had the speaker earlier, I was really good for the soul for me to see that, what you guys are building. It's incredible and it's beautiful. And I think that's the reason why our country survives. It's because that silent majority of those people who are still willing to do those things to mentor youth and do the hard shit, right? I should have retired, but I didn't. I couldn't stop. And you obviously can see the addiction here, right? So I come back. I take over with my best bud, Dan Hendershot. Good-looking bald guy like me. I have far better looking than him, though. I don't know how to explain it. We look the same, but I'm way better looking. So Dan, great guy. Love him. We're the perfect team. He's he's the officer, so he's the boss. He's the planner. He looks at me, and I'm sort of, he's like, "Go handle this shit." Roger that, sir. So we had a great relationship. I had served in his unit on the 2009-2010 deployment. Well, when I took over as Sergeant Major, when I came in 17, that was Nate Bennington, the commander of Alpha Battery at the prison mission. I was his battalion commander. And I go special ops. I come back. Now on my batteries. Now he's lieutenant colonel, and I'm his sergeant major. So very unique opportunity. I served with two of the greatest human beings and officers you could ever serve for, Nate Bennington and Dan Hendershot. So he's got the HIMARS battalion in Milwaukee. Well, guess what? COVID hits. And everybody goes complete dumb during COVID, I feel like. Right? For me, it's just business as usual. It felt like another cold. And I'm not taking for granted. There's a lot of people that died and stuff, and I'm not. I feel bad
Empathy
for those folks.
today.
Yeah. Empathy is one of my strong suits. So I'm working on it, gents. I'm working on it. So anyways, we go through all the COVID stuff. We end up going through the George Floyd and all the stuff in Milwaukee. All the civil unrest there in Madison. Me and Colonel Hendershot were sort of like the command team that was in charge of all those mobilizations for the state stuff. So we did that. end up saying, you know what? I'm done in Wisconsin. It's time to go to do something different. I go to something that relit my career, and I think my energy was the SFAB, Security Forces Assistance Brigade. They're the guys in the brown berets. Actually, somebody was kind of talking crap on one of your posts. Like, yeah, if you're listening, bro, that isn't a Ranger beret. So get it straight. I can't remember his name, but somebody was talking shit on there. So I'm calling you out, bro. Get on Google and look for yourself. You're wrong. So, anyway, sorry for the sidetrack.
No, he knows who he is.
Yeah, you know who you are. I know you're a Green Beret, but get it together, right? So that gets done. I get the SFAB, go to Texas, time of my life, deploy again, go down to Central America on Alamo Shield. We got guys in Honduras, Panama, Colombia, and I guess you got a team over in Europe at the same time in Latvia. So, advisors mission. So we're advising foreign armies. Just a great mission set, a great job, a great time. Imagine a small unit going from a unit of 500 down to 50. Getting to keep the same job that you have right now. You're not in charge of 500, you're in charge of 50. And the 50 you get to pick where they're from. So you pick the best of the best from all over. And that's what it was. And you're talking work hard, play hard type of guys. But you're talking experts. You know, guys that like to give each other a lot of shit, you know, but will defend each other till the cows come home. So, I mean, just a great time of my life, do the deployment. I come back. No, I'm a staff guy, you know, in Virginia, you know, the gray-bearded warrior at this point, giving back what I can. I don't know when the end date is, but, you know, that's been my whole career in a nutshell.
That's amazing. That, I don't think I think people are so, I was watching the 9/11 stuff with my wife this morning. It's like, people forget about the sacrifices that you guys make and the stories you just told. Like, people don't realize that. They just know what their life looks like, but they don't. There's so much entitlement of people that don't know the sacrifices. So those stories are powerful for people to hear. Very different episode than we usually have, and I think this is good because I think these stories are important to hear. So, tell us more. Go ahead, Keegan.
No, you go.
I know you did some work with Afghan refugees.
Yeah. Still doing an enduring thing.
Tell us more about that.
Oddly enough, leaving your thing today, I got a call from Sean McCarthy, who's a guy I had worked with, contractor over in Afghanistan. He called. One of the guys we put in for was denied was special immigrant visa. So we'll sort that out later today. But I work with a guy by the name of Sean Halpin, who was an intelligence guy that I worked with. And, I'll tell you, just like 9/11, everybody kind of remembers it. I remember the day that people were hanging off of airplanes and we were pulling out of Afghanistan. And, I can't even explain to you my feelings on that, and how I felt about that. There was disgust, anger, a lot of rage.
Because the work you were doing before was in preparation for that, correct?
100%. And I mean, it's personal. It's with these people that, it's not the sacrifices of the people, it's also the families. They essentially came to work for us. And now the Taliban's hunting these guys daily. They're not welcome in their country. They're considered enemies. And we just fucking, don't really want to go down that road, but we could have done better than what we did. So at any route, we got involved. Me and Kyle actually were working together, and we went and raised a ton of money, went and gathered a bunch of clothes, got a hold of a bunch of people, and we started giving stuff here to Fort McCoy, which was one of the refugee centers. And so we did a lot of that, spent a lot of money, a lot of time helping those folks out. Very much a good news story of this state, especially this area, La Crosse area, county, Monroe County. These counties coming together to support all these Afghans coming in. Because I tell you what, it could have went a different way, and people really pitched in and helped out, and they did great things. So I've been involved in helping the guys that are still there, the guys that are in hiding, being hunted by the Taliban. And we're involved in what's called the P1 Special Immigrant Visa process, running through the department and the embassies and what have you. So I work with a guy by the name of Sean Halpin. He's the brains behind this thing. Not denying that. He is a paperwork stud. He understands the process. I'm the guy who writes the memo. I basically testify on this memo that says, hey, these are the guys. This is how they helped us. These guys will be great Americans. These aren't terrorists. These are good people. So very proud. News story last week, we got 2 more, and I'm at 39, helping 39 people and their families get here.
That's amazing.
And, you think these guys are in their 20s. They're married. They got kids. They're hiding. And, so I just, anybody that's listening in that has folks like that and wants to get involved, reach out to me. I want to help get you on the right process. There's a lot of people wasting time, not understanding the process or doing the right paperwork. I want to help you. If you have friends and stuff there, and I'll tell you, I get phone calls, and it's just rewarding. These guys, they owe me they owe their life to me and all this shit. And I'm thinking, no, man, you just be good Americans. Yeah, you know what? That's what this country was founded on. People from all over the place. So they're going about it the right way, though. And I really appreciate what that administration's doing to help these people. Is it cumbersome? Yes. Being a security guy, am I glad it's cumbersome? Absolutely. So, the vetting process is right.
Is that through an organization or is that through?
Yeah, so there's quite a few organizations. You probably heard at the beginning. One big one was like the Pineapple Express. These are these ex-badass special forces and Army Rangers going over and sneaking people out. So there was ways to monetarily support that. They're getting private aircraft jets flying in there, risking their asses against enemy lines. And they're not military guys, right? Or some of them were guard guys that weren't on military orders. We're going in and saving these people. And I mean, what patriots those guys are. But then there's one Afghan hands that helps out. You go online, you can look it up. There's a lot of ways to help out. And most of the organizations are pretty good. Like, it isn't one of those deals where you give $100 and the organization keeps $50. It's going to help people. So
that's awesome. That's amazing. So, over the past 25 years, you've served under multiple different administrations, and how do you, what impact does the president of the administration that we have on like your day-to-day duties in the military? I asked that question.
Yeah, no, and I'm gonna shoot you straight. Like, my whole career's been that way. I'm a ask for forgiveness type of guy, I guess. So it depends on what level you're at, right? So if you're working at this echelon up here, division level and above, way up there, the policy stuff's probably making a difference. Down at Joe's level, Joe being soldier, little guy level, my level, the administrations, their policies affect us, but it's not like it does upstairs, right? Like, here's an example. And I'm gonna throw the current one under the bus, right? The fact that we have National Guardsmen that don't have health care is a travesty. You got guys serving their country, doing things, and they can't get health insurance. That's a problem. And I don't care what administration it is. That's shit. So when stuff like that affects the formation. It affects retention. It's like running a business. If you didn't offer your people health insurance, how long do you work for you? There, until they find a job that offers health insurance, right? The military is going through something very similar. I will tell you principally, right? So if you think conservative and liberals, right? So I came in during Bill Clinton, right? And you think about every president that since then, we've had all different types of presidents, right? Conservative presidents have a tendency to use what's called conventional army, big army stuff. So think like George Bush era, for example. Liberal type folks typically, this isn't a doctrine or anything. This is just Mike Seefeld's point of view, that when we've had liberal presidents in, they've utilized the special operations approach. So not as many more covert operations type stuff. Is there a right or wrong answer to that? I don't think so. I think it's a delicate balance of both. Some of the problem I have is when the administration says there's something that they're not. For example, somebody says that they served in the military to a certain rank, and they didn't. Or they did and they didn't retire there, or they say they deployed and they didn't. So that type of stuff, right? So that ain't even politics. It just boils down to doing the right thing and telling the truth. But I would tell you from a policy perspective, it doesn't really change. I would say that the state level, at least from my experiences for the Guard, has much more of an impact.
Keegan?
Yeah, I'm here. Welcome. No, I mean, it's just, incredible to hear your story. And obviously I wasn't at Leading with Power, but to be able to hear that firsthand is incredible. And so my question, just because when you were telling that story and you're talking about going on deployment and then coming home, then you go on deployment and you come home, can you talk about what that's like? Because then you're talking about, I worked with so-and-so, now he's the COO or the CEO. You got all these men and women that have literally just been out serving and protecting us so that we can have the freedom. But what's that like, being on deployment, coming back, working a job, and probably just not seeing or feeling the gratitude? You know what I mean? Like you just lived you were in a whole different world. Now you come back, and it's, I can't believe the boss made me do this. Like, how difficult was that?
How do you not jump on his deck? Punch him in the face 6 times? Because he's being an
I was
asshole?
asking it a different way, but essentially that was it.
Yeah. It's all okay.
No, I love that.
I'll use some empathy here. So, so I'll talk about my first time coming back. I did that real long one and coming back. And I thought one thing that was unique was we're into this briefing room before they release us basically to the jungle, which is the real world. They're about ready to release us. The Army's like, oh shit, we gotta talk to them about this, They force feed all these briefings down your throat. And the one I really found comical was they brought in the State Patrol. And I'm like, well, shit, we ain't even had no beers yet. Why are these guys here, right? So, no, and so the State Patrol gets up there and everyone's like, boo, we didn't even crack the half barrel yet, and the fucking cops are here already. It's like, Jesus. So he's like, all right, guys, you guys haven't been driving in a while. And when you drive over there, you run cars off the road. They pull over, they get fucking shot at or run off the road, right? So it's a very aggressive type of driving. And, you take it for granted at the time. Looking back, I'm like, that's the smartest fucking thing the Army ever did, was bring them in to remind us, hey, you can't drive 85. You can't shoot star clusters out your window at vehicles.
No.
And you can't use certain language that you were accustomed to using. Like, you can't, roll up and tell a lady off at the stoplight because she was following you too close, right? So everything is different. The thing I appreciated most was a shower without wearing flip-flops. My feet didn't touch bare water barefoot in over 2 years. First thing I did to get off the airplane was I went in the grass barefoot. Like, the stuff you take for granted is the same thing that is the hard transition back into. I mean, they had quit smoking in bars while I was gone in Wisconsin. Wisconsin passed the law. I had smoked at the time. I was down here. We were yellow ribbing right here.
In this room?
No, not in this room. Right down the street, though.
Yeah.
Because we had Coconut Joe's, Library, and a bunch of bars. Well, they turned us all loose in La Crosse. before they sent us home. So, I mean, we tore this town apart. Shout out to Nate Bennington for getting kicked out of that one club we were at, sir. Good job. Thank you. So they kind of turned us loose here. And another smart thing that the Army did was allowing us to get together, have some drinks, sort things out a little bit for a few days before we got released back. That was that time for those guys to get hammered, stupid, drunk, cry, sort it out, figure it out. And, you know, you learn over time you need more of that. So at the time I was a young leader. I wasn't that smart on this stuff, but that type of stuff. The other big thing was just like sleeping was very difficult because now you just did a huge time change coming home. But to a degree, depending on your mission set, you're always guarded. So I think the hardest transition, I don't know, Kyle, tell me if I'm wrong here, but was for the families. We kind of were what we were, but it was the families and the children. You know, your dad's gone for that long, and all of a sudden, you know, dad's a little different. Dad's got a more serious look in his eyes. Dad's gets upset a little bit quicker than normal. If details aren't followed to the T. So the adjustment is, and will always be still as hard. And it's been how many years since I went? I'm still adjusting. And I don't know that you ever fully adjust back, which ain't a bad thing. I think you just find ways to control it, like post-traumatic stress. A lot of guys suffer from that. Depression. A lot of guys suffer from that. My hardest thing to do every day is when I have to shave. When I step in the mirror and I'm looking at myself in the mirror, you know who I see? I see David Barry. I see Robert Basham. I see all these guys that we lost while I was gone. I see friends that I've lost too early. Dom Collada, Lisa Hendershot, Brad Goldstein, buddy of mine, just died of a heart attack. 41 years old. So, but that's my reminder. I don't have time to feel sorry for myself. I don't have time to wait till tomorrow. These fucking guys are living through me, so I need to do it. And I need to do it well. So I try to help veterans see that side, right? And, you know, I talked a little bit today about my struggles with PTSD, youth sports, giving back to the community. Those are the things how I combat it. Not everybody's built the same. It works differently for some people, but, you know, to finally answer your question is like the adjustment's everything. You know, I can't point to one thing, even right down to eating. It's crazy.
Well, this was incredible. Thank you again so much, and Kyle, both of you guys for your service. We are forever in debt to you guys. So, yeah. Thank you so much. Your story is inspiring, amazing. I think our audience will think the same. So,
yeah, thank you for your service, and for anybody that's watching, tuning in, that served our country as well. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I will do one shout out.
Yeah,
I am a new small business owner.
Here we go.
Send us
I got to do it.
Let's hear it.
Do it.
Yep.
Send us your logo too. We'll blast it right here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Make it look cool.
Well, I got a 107.5. Kevin Gropp, the owner of the radio station up there, did one hell of a 4-second long advertisement, and it's like the guy who was the Bud guy.
Yeah.
We salute you, all bowling repair machine guy. You know that guy, that voice does my advertisement. But if you're looking to get your house washed or your personal business, trackers maybe, you name it, concrete slab. You want a high-pressure washing, veteran-owned, committed service who will be there and do it better than anybody else, get a hold of Hydro Heroes USA. Again, hydroheroesusa.com. You can also find us on Facebook at Hydro Heroes LLC, or you just look me up, Micheal Seefeld. Michael's not spelt right. My mom messed that up, so it's Micheal Seefeld, Seefeld. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Rock on.
Great. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the Pay It Forward podcast. If you want to find out more about how you can support the podcast or become a sponsor, please click the link below or visit our website, payitforwardpodcast.com.
Again, thank you so much for your support, and we hope that you can find a way this week to pay it forward.